You're watching the Military Channel. Go behind the lines.
It's every soldier's fear. Somewhere out there, there's a bullet with your name on it. Bombs, rockets, bullets. The soldier lives in a permanent hail of hot, twisted metal. And the only thing standing between him and certain death is his body armor.
It felt like somebody kind of teed up with a sledgehammer and just took me right off my feet.
Get locked and loaded as we go back through generations of technology to discover how body armor became the last line of defense.
3, 2, 1.
It's time to go ballistic. Body armor. For today's soldier, it's the difference between life and death. Changing threats and changing weapons mean it's always evolving, and dragon skin is the latest off the block. Lighter, tougher, more flexible and more durable than the competition, this dragon can take plenty of fire and still come back for more.
Initially, I thought I was dead. I knew I'd been shot, and I was like, wow, this isn't good.
A combination of hard, highly advanced ballistic composites and soft ballistic fibers, dragon skin's fish-like ceramic discs create an ultra-tough exterior. It flexes and molds to the body, allowing maximum mobility while stopping high-velocity, armor-piercing rounds. Now, Weaponology will unlock its family tree, going back through generations of technology to reveal how steel plate, cotton, and Kevlar have evolved into the most advanced body armor system on the planet, dragon skin. The story of armor can be traced back to the 15th century, when European blacksmiths learned how to forge sheet steel. This achievement led to an evolutionary high point in rigid body armor, a world of medieval knights with full metal jackets. They are the pioneers of body armor.
When people think about knights in armor in the Middle Ages, they tend to think of knights in full plate armor. They actually only came in right at the very twilight of the period, because the limitation was in making large plates of steel. Early iron-producing processes could only produce small sheets of steel. So the Romans had their lorica segmentata with thin plates.
You take a series of simple strips of metal, easily forged by even the dimmest blacksmith, and then you bend them into a rough shape and allow them to ride each on the next, so that a blow against a lorica segmentata is distributed widely so that it becomes harmless.
By 1450, Italian armorers found a way of making large plates of steel. They were able to build steel suits, protecting the knight from head to toe.
Plate armor gets its strength from the shape. If I take this as a flat piece of 16-gauge steel, if I put it on these blocks and stand on it, then I think, yeah, it will just bend very easily. It's quite flimsy. This is exactly the same gauge of steel, exactly the same dimensions, but I've hammered it out, I've domed it out as an armorer would. And now I think we'll find it's a lot stronger. It actually will take my entire weight.
But steel in itself wasn't enough. Many knights added an extra layer of soft, padded protection beneath.
If you imagine putting a sheet of metal on your arm and hitting it hard with a sword, that is still going to hurt your arm. So you have to have a thick layer of padding on the garment underneath that absorbs the blunt trauma.
Hundreds of years later, the knights in their hard, rigid armor had left the battlefield, but padded protection hadn't. The Roaring 30s. Prohibition, gambling, and gangsters. Mob hits had become part of everyday life, and if you wanted to survive, you'd need more than a gun.
As late as the 1920s and 30s, American gangsters were using this principle of multiple layers of padding to protect them. They made bulletproof vests out of multi-layers of silk. And that could slow the bullets of the handguns of the day. Any bullet traveling up to 1,000 feet per second was slowed enough not to cause mortal injury. In fact, it directly led to Smith & Wesson developing the .357 Magnum.
As a marketing ploy, Smith & Wesson said, this is the gun that takes the proof out of bulletproof.
Downtown shootouts, drive-bys. Chicago was covered in gun smoke. In the end, a vicious murder would lead to the invention of an entirely new form of body armor. In 1893, the mayor of Chicago, Carter Harrison, was shot in cold blood in his own armchair, wiped out by gangsters. Chicagoans were shocked. Something had to be done. What it took was some divine inspiration.
This is the parish where Brother Casimir Seglin invented the bulletproof vest.
Casimir Seglin was a priest at St. Stanislaus Church, Chicago. Shocked by Mayor Harrison's death, he set off on a divine mission to create a bulletproof vest. For 15 years, he experimented. Steel shavings, hair, and moss were all included in his cloth designs. Nothing worked. But then he tried silk. Silk is stronger than steel and has the ability to stretch 30% longer than its original length without breaking. A spider's web hit by an insect will absorb and displace the kinetic energy. Seglin applied this principle to bullets. But the problem was to find the right weave. Only when Seglin visited the great silk weaving mills in Europe did he find a technique to produce the perfect 4-ply weave.
He came back to Chicago, he wove this silk together into the cloth and invented the vest.
Determined to prove the effectiveness of his invention to the skeptical residents of Chicago, he came up with the ultimate demonstration.
He believed so strongly in what he did that he went to a Chicago theater and demonstrated. He wore the vest.
As the crowd watched, an associate, Ashley Weber, pointed a gun at Father Seglin.
Fired a shot. It didn't penetrate. The vest withstood the bullet. He certainly believed in what he was doing, and again, I suspect that he deep down in the inner sanctum of his soul, he felt that this was his call from God, and he was going to put his name to this. This was his vocation, and so, you know, God wouldn't let him down.
Seglin's soft bulletproof vest was a massive breakthrough, but it was no quick fix for soldiers on the battlefield. In 1914, a Seglin vest could cost as much as $800, almost $15,000 in today's money. The result? In World War I, body armor was limited to just a few elite troops.
Military men are traditional types. They're reluctant to let go of old ideas. And the French are still putting in 12 regiments of cuirassiers, people who are wearing the back and breast cuirass and the helmet that was worn by their regiment in the Napoleonic Wars.
Some German elite troops also wore body armor, but it was too heavy, not protective enough, and slowed them down.